So today we're going to be taking a look at a book on knife fighting that you guys voted on. Hi guys, my name is Joe and welcome to Fighting Words, the martial arts library. On this channel I review martial arts books and talk about other martial arts related subjects. The subject for today's review is Bowie and Big Knife Fighting System. Published in 2003, the author is Dwight C. McLemore. Now, the late Mr. McLemore had a background in numerous martial arts, including several bladed systems. He was also a retired combat arms officer for the United States Army. For his books, not only did he do his own writing, he did his own illustrating. Now, one of the first things to note, the book is a little bit awkward to read. This is the spine, but it opens up like this. So sometimes I felt like I was a bit of the town crier over here. Hear ye, hear ye. Which is a shame. Now here's something that I suspect. This was originally published by Paladin Press. Paladin Press would publish books in this shape, but they would also have a spine over here. For instance, here's another one of Mr. McLemore's books. This one had been published by Paladin Press. Again, the long form, but it opens up this way. It was originally published in 2003, that's where the initial copyright is from, but it has a second one from 2017, so I suspect that Mr. McLemore went on to publish his own books, and I think that for whatever reason, they couldn't get the binding over here and opening up like this. That's what I suspect. So if you get one from Paladin Press, it may very well open up this way. This is a new copy, so again, this is how you read it. It's also of note that throughout the book, the author will cite both classical and contemporary blade resources. For the classical works, it's mostly in the realm of swordsmanship. And there's a lot of crossover between the ideas of using swords and the ideas of using these larger knives. For the more contemporary works, he will also cite, for instance, Hak Hakim, who was, again, a combatives and edged weapons guy, who's also renowned through the Filipino martial arts. So he's got a YouTube channel and puts up a lot of his instructionals for free if you want to check that out. The early section of the book, the introduction, discusses Jim Bowie, the knives he may have used, and also the influences from Western Europe on the type of blade cultures that found their way into the North American territories at the time. Some of it had been colonized by Westerners, some of it hadn't. But he noted that you would find influences of Spanish swordsmanship, English broadsword and backsword work. And you guys have noticed that I've started doing some excerpts from some books. I might actually read off some of this intro sometime on its own. But the sum of it was we don't really know what sort of knife Jim Bowie used. Allegedly, his brother was more along the lines of designing the knives, and he was apparently a knife collector. But we're given several different options that he may have used, or may have used something similar to what we see. He notes that there was only one actual account of Bowie using a knife in a knife fight, like a duel. Although he does add some speculation that, given Bowie's penchant for doing some underhanded dealings in his life, he probably was familiar with how to use a blade in order to protect himself from the people he was around. Instead of chapters, the book has sections, and section 1 basically goes over gripping and holding the knife. And this includes various styles of grips, for instance, the saber grip, the foil grip, and the universal grip. There's also a small section in here on different shapes of handle and how the hand might conform around that handle. Also in this section, he goes over multiple different stances, including both classical and modern ones. For instance, we get Italian stances and Spanish stances from the classical swordsmanship, but we also get, for instance, Biddle's stance. Uh, Lieutenant Colonel Biddle was a World War II combatives instructor, and he will also discuss things that are pertinent to knife fighting, like whether to keep the empty hand forward or to the rear. He will also discuss whether to present the knife with the edge up or edge down. Section 2 of the book is focused on the thrust, and this isn't only just like the linear, straightforward thrust. He will also present other more angular thrusts as well as the fencing style lunge. And he'll go over the mechanics of, everything from what the wrist is doing to what the legs are doing. So pretty much a head to toe look at what the body is doing as it is thrusting. In this section, he begins to use Spanish sword fighting terminology. And you'll find that sporadically throughout the book. He will note that this is primarily just to sort of give the reader sort of a quick and easy way to recognize that it's this technique or that technique. In the section, he will also talk about the different targets and zones of targets. One minor drawback is that he references Fairbairn's timetable of death. This has been myth busted. Please see my review on contemporary knife targeting. I can sort of forgive the author. This was probably what he most had access to at the time of his writing. It was probably the only thing for the longest time that showed how long it would actually take someone to die from knife wounds to various targets, no matter how wrong it was. Section 3 goes over the cut, and this includes your standard cut as well as something that he calls a snipe, also known as a hack, which is more of a quick thrusting motion instead of a cut that's followed through the target. And he also goes over the back cut, so cutting with the back edge of the blade, or if the Bowie knife is held with the edge up, with the main edge of the blade. In the section, he also goes over some different flow drills, as well as the different angles of attack, and again goes over various targets, once again referencing Fairbairn to the slight detriment of the book itself. The flow drills in this section are solo flow drills, so one could read that section of the book and just develop a basic pattern for solo practice with the knife itself. Section 4 goes over what he refers to as forever principles. In other words, the underlying immutable principles that one will find in a weapons engagement. These include the box, which is sort of the frame around the upper body, where you don't want to get your arm outside the box, you want to be outside of your opponent's box. Basically, you can think of it as sort of the part where the fight actually happens. You will also go over various types of footwork, both linearly, laterally, and also the Spanish circle, which is an idea taken from Spanish fencing. It looks very complex. However, it basically just forms an idea of various lines and angles that one can travel along. The section also covers things like angles of attack and also angling off the opponent's line of attack. It covers things like range, including partner drills, where you and your partner can use your footwork and get a better feeling for range of attack. Section 5 just sort of adds on to everything that's been done. It's very brief. It basically includes parry and cut partner drills, as well as some more ideas for solo flow drills. As far as the pros go, the author seems to have done extensive research on both the life of Jim Bowie and whether or not he would have used a knife and the type of knives he would have used. He also seems to draw extensively from both contemporary and classical sources on fighting with a blade and incorporating that into this book. And overall, I do think it's good instruction on basic techniques as well as the underlying principles that one will find for this sort of combat. As far as the cons go, I've already mentioned that the binding is somewhat awkward. There are also sections where, to the author's credit, he's trying to convey three-dimensional motion in 2 dimensions of a drawing. It's not easy to read or interpret. So there are parts of this that I think require multiple readings to sort of get the hang of what's going on. As far as recommendations go, I think it's generally pretty good if you want to understand, again, big knife fighting or Bowie fighting. And this is more like a dueling setup. So one of those things that for most people is going to be, for informational purposes only. I think there are some good principles here as far as understanding fundamental large knife fighting. I think this is more historical than practical for most people under most circumstances. I think some of the principles can definitely be applied to self-defense. If someone lunges at you with a weapon and you have a blade, you can angle off and use some of the lessons here to, riposte or, defend the attack. But I find it very unlikely that most people will find themselves in a duel with someone else where each person is armed with a large knife, which is primarily what this book is about. So I do think historically it's very interesting. I think, again, it has some good knife principles in here. But as far as immediate applicability, I don't think most civilians are going to be able to use it in a practical sense. But it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff in the martial arts that lacks practicality, but that's a lot of fun. So don't let that deter you. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. Thank you for watching. And if you would like to sponsor a review or another type of video, or if you would just like to help support the channel, please consider donating to my Ko-fi account. There's going to be a link to that in the description. And if you like this video, please do the YouTube stuff. Please like it. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more contents. Share the video to interested parties if you think they didn't like it, or if you think they don't like it and they want to yell at me in the comment section, because that helps me out too. Anyway, that's all I got. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.